Good evening, everyone. The topic today we are going to cover is that this is sources of ancient history. Okay, this is one of the most important topic from ancient India. Why? Because every year there are questions from this sources part, right? And medieval history also and ancient history also. So today we are going to analyze whatever the kind of sources we are having, right? Whether this is literary or archaeological sources or some foreign accounts. Okay, so we are going to cover them holistically and comprehensively, right? This is quite a long chapter, a long unit, but this is something that we have to do, right? We can't compromise with this part. Also, for you, it may be quite difficult, but I will try my level best to simplify the facts and figures, the concepts, along with uh, the things that we are going to cover today. Apart from this, please, after the class, you have to go through the notes religiously. Okay. Some people are facing some problems. Okay. Why? Because you are not actually revising the notes. Fine. I'm getting curious from your side. So you are simply saying, sir, you have this problem, you have that problem. Okay. See, what you are doing, you are simply taking the classes, but you are not revising the notes. All right. So taking classes is one thing, but revising the notes is another thing. Okay. If you revise the notes, then definitely all the concepts will be cleared. All right. Yeah. So let's begin. Sources of ancient history. Okay, so we are going to cover all the important sources like literary sources, Puranic sources, Vedic literature, later Vedic literature, Jainism, Buddhism that we already covered. But here I have some other perspective for you by Kautilya's Shastra. Okay, and some of the limitations associated with them, right? And these are also relevant for the men's examination. For the men's examination, this is not like you have to refer the other sources as well. No, okay, but for the GS paper one men's examination, most of the part, geography, art and culture, right, modern history, they are covered in prelims only. Fine. Yeah, you need to do some answer writing, I can understand, but the syllabus is quite same. Okay. So the sources that I have taken is that old NCERT class 11th by R.S. Sharma, Ancient India, and old NCERT class 11th again for the medieval India by Meenakshi Jain. Okay. So what we have to do, you don't have to refer any other source on this unit. Okay. And for the all the previous units also that I covered, for the upcoming classes, I will let you know, right? Which sources you have to follow, or my notes are enough or not. Fine. So please do not do overlapping, right? So this is only the crux of NCERT along with some additional points from internet, Wikipedia, and some reference book. Okay. So these notes are definitely more than enough for you. Please do not waste your time by doing the same chapter from other sources, right? Because I have covered everything, right? So sources of ancient history, we have two kinds of sources. One is literary sources in written form, okay, and the second we have the archaeological sources. Archaeological sources means epigraphic sources, numismatic. Numismatic is what? A study of coins. Epigraphic is what? A study of inscriptions. Architectural remains, archaeological explorations, and so on, excavations. Fine. So these are archaeological sources. There would be some history, no, where our society didn't have any writing or any script. Okay, for example, if we talk about Paleolithic age, Mesolithic age, Neolithic age, and so on. So we have to depend on the archaeological sources only, right? So let's go into deep. The first topic is literary sources. Fine. Now, Indian tradition of history writing. Okay, some people argues that in India, what happened? We had no sense of history writing. Why? Because we simply wrote story, right? Sometimes without any sense. This is quite true because in ancient India and medieval history also we had the monarchical system. There was a king, right? And you can write the history with the king's permissions only, with the fund from the government or the king only, right? So you are going to write good things regarding that particular dynasty, okay, or the king, right? So sometimes you are actually hiding the true facts, right? This is why we have some logical arguments like this one, fine. But that's not that much important for the prelims examination. This is just a perspective. So everything source, okay, whether this is archaeological or literary sources, okay, so you can't rely on them completely. This is why history is called a battleground, okay, because there are a lot of debates and so on, right, going on. Then we have Puranic literature. Puranic literature is based on the Puranas, okay. So in Indian ancient civilization, we are supposed to have 18 different Puranas, okay. These are sacred books, okay, supposed to be associated with the Brahmanism, fine. So we have 18 main Puranas, then 18 subsidiaries Puranas, and large number of other books as well. Okay. So their subject matter are this only, right? Sarga, Pratisarga, Manvantara, Vamsa, and Vamsanucharita. Okay, so these are simply talking about evolution of the universe, right? Reckoning of time and so on. So here, okay, these are simply books which convey some highlights on the evolution of the universe, right? How it actually came into existence, right? And some of the life stories of some selected characters, okay? Some selected characters like Bharata, right? Some kings, okay? We will see. Yeah. So you have to simply understand the nature of sources, the nature of information that we get from that particular source. So in the Purana source, from the 18 Puranas, what we are getting apart from the religious occurrence and different rituals and so on, right? We have some historical things as well. For example, they are talking about evolution of universe, right? In that period, 2,500 years ago or some, fine. Also in Puranas, okay, we have 4 different ages: Krita, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali, right? So, like we did know in Hindu Dharma also, we know that we have different yuga or ages. Okay, for the example, Treta, Dwapar. Then currently we have Kali Yuga, right? So these are 4 different ages. Okay, according to Purana tradition, right? So these are some basic facts from R.S. Sharma NCERT only, right? Yeah, this is the important one. This is something that you should know, guys. Okay, we have different calendar. For example, currently we follow the English calendar, right? Like 2021 is going. This is the 6th of July. Okay, but apart from this, in Indian tradition also, we have 3 different calendar that began in India. Okay, so first we had the Vikram Samvat, which began in 57 BC. Vikram Samvat. Then we had Sak Samvat in 78 AD. And then we have Gupta era that began in 319 AD. Okay. Later on, when I'll tell you the political history of ancient India, then you would realize what are the dynasties or the kings who are actually associated with such kind of developments, right? But from now, you have to remember this in chronological order, because sometimes UPSC makes questions on chronology. For example, they will provide you the list Sak, Vikram, and Gupta, and they will ask you to actually set it in a chronological order. So remember it, VSG, Vikram, Sak, Gupta, right? This is their occurrence in the history. So UPSC is not interested in asking the dates and so on. Getting this? This is why they simply asked about the chronology from modern history also, not only from the ancient history, from the modern history as well. Right? Fine. So these are some of the important facts, okay, which we can learn actually from the Puranas, the 18 Puranas that I just mentioned. Okay. So they are simply talking about various things. For example, a little bit history regarding the sacrifices, okay, the kind of sacrifices as per the Brahmanism kings have to maintain, right? Kings have to perform, for example, yagyas, Aswamedha yag, and so on, right? We get also some of the history regarding their families and their clans, regarding some of the Mahajanpadas, like we have Anga, like we had Magad Empire, like we had Kosala. Okay, so these are some of the information that we basically get from the Puranas. Okay, you don't have to do PhD here. Please remember, because UPSC is simply going to ask question on nature, nature of information or facts and figures we are getting from that particular sources. Then Ramayana and Mahabharata. Okay. So Ramayana and Mahabharata, they are epics of India. They are epics in Sanskrit language. Okay. But that is something in history we are having a huge debate. Okay. For example, according to R.S. Sharma NCERT, the Ramayana and Mahabharata, okay, these are not the real stories. Getting this? These are simply, a narrations. Fine. That too with lot of development from time to time. For an example, if we talk about Ramayana, which is supposed to be written by Maharishi Valmiki, okay, the decomposition started in 5th BC, the 5th BC, right? And is passed through the 5 different stages. And the 5th stage was in 12 AD. Initially, we had only 6,000 verses. Okay. Verses means the Sanskrit lines, the kind of Sanskrit lines. But today we are having 24,000 verses. Originally, it has only 6,000. Okay. So what is happening? Because it is passing from generation to generation, and new people are adding some other points, some other lines. They are actually doing some kind of interpretations, and based on that, they are keep adding. They are keeping adding the new verses or lines. Okay. Next is Mahabharata, which is supposed to be written by Maharshi Vyasa only, right? So the time period is 70 BC to 4th AD, right? Number one. Initially, we had 8,800 verses only, okay? But now this is more than a lakh, 1 lakh verses. Oh my God. Okay, fine. When it had 24,000 verses, it came to known as Bharata, because in India, we are supposed to have the Bharata tribe from the Aryan, after the coming of Aryan in India. Okay, around 1500 BC, there is a common concept that Aryans comes from Central Asia in India. Okay, so we have basically 2 kinds of society in India. One is Dravida, and second is Aryan. Okay, so Dravida is supposed to be the real people of India. Okay, and Aryans are supposed to come from Central Asia. Central Asia, like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and so on. Right. Anyway, so earlier it was known as Bharata, and later on, when it got to 1 lakh verses, then it came to be known as Mahabharata or Sat Sahasri Samhita. All right. Puranic literature limitations. Okay, so we have gone through the kind of information we get actually from this Puranic literature. So do we have some kind of limitations, or we can completely rely on them? Of course, we have some limitations. Like why? Because they are religious in nature. Okay, rather than history writing, they are more interested in religion, the Brahmanism, the rituals, and so on. All right. Number one. Number two, sometimes they talk about the universe, evolution of universe, and so on, right? But our mind basically questions that it was the era of 2,500 years back. Okay, we didn't have astronomical advances that much. All right. So how you can rely on them to know about the history of evolution of this universe? All right. Then we have Vedic literature, okay, which are based on 4 Vedas. What are 4 Vedas? Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samveda, and Atharva Veda. Atharva Veda. So these are quite similar to the Puranas also. Why? Because they are highly religious in nature rather than political histories. Okay. Or the important development, right? And there you know about various Gana or Jata means caste, subcaste, right? Different clans. Sometimes we get information about that, right? Also, the kind of rituals system that developed in Brahmanism. It was only the part of Vedas only. All right. And all the Vedas, they actually emphasize on different things. For the example, Samveda talks about music and so on. Okay. Atharva Veda talks about some black magic and so on. Right. Rig Veda talks about some mantras, some chanting of mantras, right? And so on. So in this way, they are emphasizing on different things, but again, they are religious in nature. Fine. Then after Veda, we have Vedanga. Vedanga means Ved plus Anga, means limbs of Vedas only, right? So if you get any question in the examination, okay, for the example, the term Siksha, Kalpa, Vyakarna, Nirukta, Chanda, or Jyotisha in the context of ancient Indian history or ancient history literary sources, okay, they are related to what? You would have four options. First is Purana, second is Veda, third is Vedanga, fourth is Sutra. So the answer would be Vedanga only. All right. These are simply sub parts of Vedas only. Okay, and there they have focus on a particular topic. For example, Vyakarna, that is grammar, the English grammar. Kalpa, that is on rituals. All right. Jyotisha, that is on astronomy. Astronomy. So you are going to get a lot of information from this unit, but this is what important. Okay, and all these are there in NCERT only. NCERT only. So you should know definitely that. I'll let you know about the questions that UPSC has asked from this unit, right? Yeah. Next we have Sutra, right? Sutra. What is Sutra? Each Vedanga has developed a credible literature around it, which are in the Sutra form. Okay, first we have Veda, then we have Vedanga, and then we have Sutra. All right. So what is happening? That each Vedanga has developed a credible literature. Okay, we have some commentaries from different scholars of that particular time. Okay, we have some sort of rituals, some sort of rules and regulations regarding that particular things. Okay, so these are in that form only. Also remember, this is a very important book, Ashta Adhyay, written by Panini. This was asked in the UPSC examination many times in the match the following. Okay, so please remember this important source. Ashta Adhyay. What is that? That is basically a book on grammar. Please remember. Ashta Adhyay means eight chapters. Okay, the English meaning will be 8 chapters, but this is the name of the book, Ashta Adhyay. So please remember 2 points. Number 1, it is on grammar and not on any other source. Number 2, who wrote this? Panini. Fine. Then we have Brahmana. What is Brahmana? They are simply talking about Vedic rituals and so on. All right. So each sources focus on a particular thing only, as you are able to see here. Then we have Arnikas and Upanishads. Upanishads. So what they do? They give discourses on different spiritual and philosophical problems. All right. They provide you some solution. They discuss some issues like spiritual and philosophical problems, right? In Upanishad and Arnikas. What is Silva Sutra? What is Sroth Sutra? And what is Grahe Sutra? Right? These are quite similar, but having a meaning, a different meaning. Okay. And sometimes UPSC makes a statement like this, right? And they interchange the explanation part. And then you have to identify which one is correct one, which one is incorrect one. So please pay attention. So Silva Sutra focuses on measurement for sacrificial altars. Okay. And it actually marked the beginning of study of geometry and maths, right? Because they talk about measurements. So this is a very important source, Silva Sutra. Second is Sroth Sutra. Sroth Sutra. So they are emphasizing on the account of royal coronation ceremonies. Royal coronation. Okay. Royal coronation means Raja का जब उसको सिंहासन मिलता है, right? When he is becoming king officially, right? So they maintain account under the Sroth Sutra. Then we have Grahe Sutra. Grahe Sutra means Graha means home, right? So they are focusing on domestic rituals with birth, naming, marriage, funeral, etc. All right. So Silva Sutra on measurement, Sroth Sutra on royal coronations, Graha Sutra on domestic rituals. Okay. Market plays important. This one is the quite important one. Then we had Jain and Buddhist literature. Okay. So see, This is something that we have already done in a beautiful way. Fine. So Jan was in Prakrit language in majority, but just literary sources were in Pali language in majority. Fine. And also we had some Jataka stories. Okay, sometimes if you get a question on Jataka stories, then don't get confused. This is related to Buddhist books only. Okay, Jataka stories talks about some stories of previous birth of Lord Buddha and some other bodhisattvas as well. Right. So each Bharta story is called Jatak, and there are more than 550 stories. So simply remember, Jataka stories are related to Buddhism and not Jainism or Brahmanism. Getting this? Very recently, in 2017 or so, they have asked a question on Dharma Sutra and Smriti. Yes. Okay. And they actually what they did, they interchanged the statements, right? And people got confused. So what are Dharma Sutras and what are Smritis? Okay, you should know that. So these are basically rules and regulations for the general public and the rulers. Public also and rulers also. To live in a society peacefully, right? Definitely there must be some rules and regulations that everybody has to follow, whether you are king or a common man, doesn't matter. Okay, number one. Number two, guys, okay, you can call them as a modern script as the constitution. Okay, constitution in ancient India, you can call them. And the law books for the ancient Indian polity and society. Okay, these are also called Dharma Shastras. Dharma Shastras. Okay, you don't have to remember the compilation period because most of um, the sources, literary sources especially, right, that we are referring from the ancient India, they have usually been written from the 2500 years to the Gupta period. Okay, to 5th century AD only, right? This is a common chronological order that you can remember, the time period that you can remember. You don't have to remember the exact timing. Okay, because UPSC is not interested in that. Fine. Other examinations for pieces kind of things, you may have to remember that, but here, no. Yeah. So Manu Smriti, which talks about the origin of Varna system and Earth Shastra of Kautilya. They are the prominent examples of Dharma Sutras and Smritis. Okay, Dharma Sutras and Smritis. So what is basically Dharma Sutras and Smritis? They are talking about some rules and regulations. Okay, yeah, number one. Number two, you can call them constitution or the law books of that time, right? Number three, Manu Smriti and Arth Shastra are examples of Dharma Sutras and Smritis only. Why? Because they are mentioning rules and regulations, how to govern. Okay, what should be proper rules and regulations for the society, right? Then we have Kautilya's Arthashastra, also known as Chanakya. I can say this is the one of the most difficult chapter because you are going to get a lot of information from here. But after this, things will be quite easier. Why? Because then you have only social, cultural, and political developments, right? Fine. So basically, this Earth Shastra is divided into 15 different chapters, known as books. Okay. And they are covering a vast area, for example, polity, economy, and society. All right. It is supposed to be written during the 4th century by Kautilya, 4th century BC, right? Kautilya is related to Mauryan Empire, who actually established the Mauryan Empire with the help of Chandragupta Maurya. Okay. Another important source is Mudra Rakshasa. It was written by Visakha Dutt, and this is a play. Again, guys, many times UPSC have asked these questions. Mudra Rakshas, written by Visakha Datta. It talks about society and culture. Okay. So you have to remember some of such kind of important books and their original writers. Okay. Then in ancient India, we have some notable writers. Okay, for example, Kalidasa, many times UPSC has asked question on this part. Okay, for example, Malvika Agnimitram. Okay, in 2017, UPSC asked question on this. Malvika Agnimitram. Okay. Number one, Abhigyan Sakuntalam, the story of Dushyant and Sakuntala, right? And so on, right? So these were written by Kalidas only. Then we have Bhasa and Sudrak. Okay. They used to write plays, right? Then we have Bana Bhatta. Bana Bhatta wrote Harsh Charita. Harsh is Harshvardhan, the king Harshvardhan from the Vardhan dynasty in 6th century AD. He was the king of Kannauj. Okay. In history, after the decline of this Harshvardhan, right? Actually, the medieval Indian history began. Right? Anyway, so please remember, Harsh Charita was written by Bana Bhatta. And then we have Vakpati, who wrote Gola Dhov, right? Then we have Bilhan, who wrote Vikraman Devacharita. Fine. And finally, Kalhan by Raj Tarangini. Kalhan, who wrote the book Raj Tarangini. Okay, and Raj Tarangini talks about the history of Kashmir. Okay, so please remember Kalhan, number one. Number two, Kalhan is supposed to be the first historian of India. Okay, what happens if you see the proper definition of a historian, okay, then it was Kalhan only, okay, who is supposed to be the real historian, the first real historian from India. Okay, so this book Raj Tarangini is written by Kalhan only. Then we have some biographical writings. For the example, the Harsh Charita was on the King Harsha, King Harshvardhan. Fine. Then we have Sandhyakara Nandi, who wrote Ramcharita. And then we have Bilhans, Vikrama Dev Charita. Okay, who wrote about Vikramaditya, King Vikramaditya. And then Atula, who wrote about Munsik Vamsa. Right. So it is a very, very small kingdom. Okay. Munsik Vamsa. It was a dynasty which ruled in northern Kerala. Fine. So you have to remember only those sources which are very much relevant. Okay. For example, ki Harsha, right? Because he ruled the whole northern India. Fine. And also this list, you know, it is designed, it has been derived from the basic NCERT only, right? So it was mentioned over there. That's why I have mentioned here. Fine. And there are some other books, okay, on different biographical writings. For example, Kumar Pal Charita of Jasimha. Okay, they are not that much relevant, but you should know the biography writing was a common culture in ancient India. All right. So this is not something which began later on. In Indian society, we had been following this for the many period of time. Limitations of Indian literary sources. Okay. Yeah. So this is only relevant for the men's examination? No, this is not correct. Okay, why? Because UPSC is making questions based on analysis to check your analytical ability. Okay, so if you get any analytical comments like this, okay, which is based on analysis, so please, you have to pay attention. Number one, printing was not known. Yes, this is something which began in modern world, right? So everything was written on soft material like birch bark, palm, leaf, fine. Since the old manuscripts become fragile in the course of time, they had to be manually copied. Okay. And while to make a copy, what is happening? You are going to add some additional points only, right? And this is why originally you can see Ramayana, Mahabharata, they were simply in 6,000 verses, but nowadays they are in more than 1 lakh verses. Okay, so every time people are going to add some other points. So you cannot completely rely on that part because it actually depends on the kind of person who is writing that. Okay, and how he is going to interpret that particular source, right? Then this is a very important point that you should know. This is from the NCERT, that we study a lot about Alexander's invasion, right? During the time of Magad Empire, okay, especially the king of Magad Empire was Dhanananda, who was killed by Chandragupta Maurya later on. Fine. So Alexander invaded in India. But the fact is that we don't have any Indian source for that. Okay. Indian sources do not mention about any such invasion. Getting this? So our understanding, it's basically entirely on the basis of Greek sources. Alexander was from Macedonia, Greece. Okay. So this is the very important fact. Okay. If you get in the examination, I'm telling you, most of the people are going to mark it incorrect. But yes, this is true. There is no even a single Indian source which mention about Alexander's invasion in India. Okay. Yeah. Apart from this, many of the religious in nature, yes, right? Veda, Puranas, Vedanga, Shrutis, and so on. So they are not that much interested in the political history. Fine. Then from the South India, we have very important source, which is again favorite of UPSC in mains in prelims. They ask question from this part, the Sangama literature. Okay. The Sangama literature is basically Tamil text, right? And it was patronized by Pandyas of Tamil Nadu. Okay, to be very precise, Madurai. Okay, so in Madurai region of Tamil Nadu, what happens? There used to be some sabhas, some assemblies, right? During the time of Pandyas. Okay, it was dynasty, right? And Sangama literature got developed in that period only. Fine, yeah. As I told you, these poets assemble in the colleges and compile poems over a period of 3 to 4 century, and ultimately came to known as Sangama literature. Fine. So they describe many kings and dynasties of South India. So to know the history of South India, this is a very, very important source, very significant one, right? Fine. Apart from this, you should know what is Etude Tokai. We have this Etude Tokai. So this whole Sangama literature is arranged in 8 different anthologies. 8 anthologies is known as Etude Tokai, right? Number 1, because you get question like this, because this is the very important source, Sangama literature. Fine. Second, the 2 main groups are Patti Nen Kila Nakku, which are called 18 lower collections, and Pattu Pattu, right? Pattu Pattu, they are about 10 songs, right? So if you get such key terms in the examination like Patti Nen Kilu Nakku or Pattu Pattu or Etude Tokai, so please remember these are related to Sangam literature only. Sangam literature, okay. Yeah, this is the important question. How is Sangam literature different from Vedic literature? This was asked in the prelims examination. Okay. So on every single statement here, you can expect a question in the examination. So please pay attention. The first, Sangam literature are secular in nature. Okay. But the Vedic literature are religious in nature. That too related to only one religion. Okay, Brahmanism only. Number 1. And they represent the heroic age of warriors and battles, right? They also talk about military exploits in detail. Okay. Songs are not primitive and so high quality of grammar. Hey, you can expect high quality of grammar. Also, they talk about how humans came in their own vessels. Small things like purchased people with the gold, supplied wine, and women to Indian rulers, and so on. Right. So they are not related to religious developments. Now, the next important source is foreign accounts. Foreign accounts. Okay, as I told you, in the process of making history, for studying history, we have to depend not only on the Indian sources, but also the foreign accounts also. Why foreign accounts? Because from the time of Indus Valley civilization only, 5,000 years ago, right, we were having trade relations with the outside world. For example, if I talk about the Indus Valley civilization, they used to have trade with Mesopotamia, currently known as Iraq. Okay. Then we are also known as with our trade with the Southeast Asia, right, and with other countries of South Asia. The Indo-Roman trade, which is very famous, right? So there must be some accounts, some writings in foreign countries. Also, many foreigners came in India. Okay, they did here a little bit research regarding Buddhism and the society, and they went back. So definitely they would have written something about India, no? So to get another perspective from a foreign point of view, right, this becomes very much relevant to construct Indian history, right? So the first important source is Greek ambassadors. Greek ambassadors. Okay. Greek ambassadors means in the Mauryan kingdom, what happens? The king of Greece, okay, they used to send their ambassadors in the Mauryan Empire in India. Fine. So they have written many things. For example, Megasthenes, who wrote the book Indica. Okay. Then we have Demachus. Then we have Dionysius, right? So these are the names who are related to Greek ambassadors in India, right? Number one. Number two, they mention Sandracotus. Who is Sandracotus? Chandragupta Maurya only. In Greece source, Sandracotus, right? They call Chandragupta Maurya Sandracotus. For the example, the name was Alexander, but we Indian call it Sikandar. So similarly, the name was Chandragupta, but they call it Sandracotus. All right. So remember the keyword if you get keyword. Sandracotus is what? Nothing but a Greek name of Chandragupta Maurya mentioned by some Greece scholars or Greece ambassadors. Then we have some historians. Okay. For example, Herodotus, Megasthenes, right? Arian. Okay. Remember only 2 and 3, right? Ptolemy, who is also well known for his book on geography, right? So basically, they were concerned mostly with the northwest part of India. Northwest means Pakistan side. Okay. Why? Because they used to come in India from that part only, right? Megasthenes wrote a very important book, which is known as Indica. Indica. Okay. So he was a Greek ambassador in the court of Chandragupta Maurya, Samrat Chandragupta Maurya. Okay. And Megasthenes wrote the book, but unfortunately, this is no longer available to us. It has been destroyed. Right. It has been destroyed. Right. Then we have some other Greek books by some other Greek writers. Okay. Like Herodotus, Arian, Darius. Okay. These are not that much relevant, but simply remember the name. They are Greek writers. Okay. And please remember Ptolemy, as I told you, he wrote a book on geographical advancement in India. Okay, so that's a very important source. If you get any statement like this, then remember the name Ptolemy. So now we studied about the Greek ambassadors like Megasthenes, who wrote a book like Indicas, right? But definitely it would have some limitations as well. Okay. Number one, they are foreign writers. Okay, they are by foreign writers. So definitely we can expect some loopholes, right? Sometimes they try to show the image of India in a negative way. Okay. For the example, Samrat Chandragupta Maurya, he actually defeated a Greece king, okay, who was actually the commander in chief of Alexander, right? But if Greece people are going to write their history, then why they would actually emphasize a lot on this? Getting this? So they would try to hide such kind of important facts and figures, which is true for Indian rulers as well, right? Chinese travelers Paiyan, Huang and I Sing. Okay, this one is important one, guys, right? Very important one, because many times UPSC has asked this. Okay, so the Paiyan visited India in 5th century AD during the Gupta period. Okay, Gupta period. Please remember this. And then Huan Sang. Okay, he visited in 7th century during the time of Harshvardhan from the Vardhan dynasty. And finally, I Sing in 7th century again. So you can remember in chronological order: Paiyan, Huan Sang, and then I Sing. Okay. UPSC did not ask dates, but they asked so many questions based on chronology. Chronology. Fine. So you can forget the dates, but not the events. Let's analyze the limitations of Chinese travelers. The limitations of Chinese travelers. Number one, Payan and Huan San, right? They have given somewhat exaggerated account of Buddhism during the period of their visit. Number one. Number two, Huan Sang depicts Harsha as a follower of Buddhism, but in his epigraphic records, Harsha mentions himself as a devotee of Shiva. Getting this? So this kind of information, this kind of differentiation, we actually get from the account of these Chinese travelers or the foreign accounts. All right. So in India, from the epigraphic records, epigraphy means study of inscriptions. They used to write their messages and so on the walls, right? On stone, on piece of stones and so on. Right. Next, then we have some counter argument as well. Like Indian rulers always have like their subjects been multi-religious people. All right. So it is not difficult for a foreigner to be confused. You can say that. What does it mean? It's like in India, we have different religions. Getting this? But in foreign countries like China, they don't have that much diversity like India. So sometimes they get confused. I will also take some of the example from the medieval Indian history, guys. For the example, Arab historians, Al-Baruni. Al-Baruni. Okay. In medieval history, actually, you study about them. So he came during the time of Mahmud of Ghazni. When Mahmud Ghazni actually invaded in India, what was the time period, guys? It was 1026 AD, almost 1000 years ago. Okay, so Mahmud of Ghazni, he invaded India many times, and he is related to the Somnath temple. He looted the Somnath temple in Gujarat. All right. So he took Al-Baruni with him, and he was a Arab scholar. Okay, Arab scholar. Okay, Arab means in Arabic language he wrote his writings. Fine. So we are done with the literary sources. So now we are going to analyze some of the important archaeological sources. Okay, archaeological sources. For the literary sources, I can understand you have different and a lot of information, but that is important. You can't miss them. For our examination, they are important. Also for the men's examination, right? You are supposed to quote some of the important sources in every question from the ancient India and Arthurian culture. For example, if you are going to talk about Mughal Empire, raise a question on Mughal Empire, try to quote some source like Akbarnama, Babarnama. Similarly, if you are writing on any question, if you have any question on modern empire, then you have a scope to mention Arthashastra by Kautilya. Getting this? So these are actually the art of answer writing. People call it answer writing, but this is not answer writing. आपको पन्ने नहीं भरने हैं. You don't have to fill number of pages. Okay, this is called the art of answer writing. You should actually emphasize on that part. What should be written? What should be written? Right? So these are some of the important things. I am planning to again start another course after the prelims examination on the art and science of answer writing. Okay. So within the period of 10 to 15 days, I will teach you how to make flow charts, right? How to write the answer, how to quote important sources, how to quote important quotations, how to write actually a good conclusion, a better conclusion, subject wise. For example, if this is a question on security or disaster management on economy, then what kind of answer you can actually write. Okay. I was planning to launch in July only. Okay. But nowadays people are focusing on their prelims examination. So even if I start the course, nobody is going to take that seriously. Okay. So I will definitely start that after the prelims examination. So you people are invited. Okay. So that would be a kind of 10 to 15 days program in which you will actually learn about the answer writing. Everybody is talking about test series. Okay. Write the test series, write test. But nobody teaches you what to write, how to write. Okay. Because everybody is doing the writing part. All the toppers, all the people who are qualifying the prelims examination, they're writing. But unfortunately, only few of them are going to qualify the mains examination. So that's the difference. It's not the content, but it's the presentation. It's your logic. It's your some extra points like sources, which make the difference. Your presentation, which make the difference. All right. So these are not only relevant for the prelims examination, but equally for the mains. So if we talk about the archaeological sources, okay, then we have different things. For the example, inscriptions, right? We have some sources, some evidences. For the example, you have studied about Indus Valley Civilization, IVC. Definitely they do have some written sources, some literary sources. But unfortunately, we are not able to decipher that. Okay. But still we know about the IVC period. How? This is only with the help of excavations. There are historians, right, who are continuously doing excavations part. They are exploring the things, right? So let's begin with the megalithic period. Megalithic period is related to South India. Okay. What happened in South India? Some people in South India, they buried their dead with their tools, weapons, pottery. Okay. And such graves were encircled by a big piece of stone. And these structures are called megaliths. Megaliths. Mega means big. Lith means stone. Okay. So this culture is known as megalithic culture. You will get another notes on different cultures like Neolithic, Paleolithic, fine, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and so on. Carbon dating principle. This was also in the class 10th science book. Carbon dating principle. Okay, this is a method to know about the real time period of a particular thing, of a particular the sources, the archaeological sources. All right. So this is a method by which you can actually identify if this particular evidence belong to this particular time period. Okay. So what is the carbon dating? Remember this, right? You don't have to remember such kind of factual information in detail. Like half-life of C14 is known as 55630 years. No, not at all. Simply remember what is carbon dating. That's it. Yeah, inscriptions. So inscriptions are very important source. Very important source. It means also they ask directly the significance of inscriptions, right? And their limitations, their analysis. So one of the most important and reliable sources of history writings are inscriptions. Number one. So what is the good news about inscription? One of the positive side is that it comes in the form it was composed in, right? And engraved for the first time. It is almost impossible to add something to it at a later stage because these are not literary sources, no, literary sources. For example, Ashoka, okay, he wrote something on a pillar, on a stone pillar. Fine. So there is no scope of adding some new things, because if you add, then the actual, you can identify the difference regarding the language, regarding the script. Fine. So next is the earliest system of writing is found in the Harappan cells, but still we are not successful to decipher them. Okay, and they were in pictographic script. We have different script. For the example, for Hindi language, we have Devanagari script, right? So they were in pictographic script, means ideas and objects expressed in the form of picture. Also, the writing system of Samrat Asoka, okay, the Asokan inscriptions, which were mainly in Brahmi script, are considered to be the earliest because we deciphered them. Fine. Languages used in Asokan inscription. Okay. So as I told you, Brahmi, it was in majority, but apart from Brahmi, in Aramaic also, in Greek scripts also, in Kharoshti also, right? We have Asokan inscriptions. Who was the first person to decipher Asokan inscription? Let me know the name. Who was the first person to decipher the Asokan inscription?
James Princip.
Okay, very nice. Again, this is something that we get in NCERT only. Okay. Then in medieval Indian history, we have Firoz Shah Tughlaq and so on, right? By this time, there was a huge advancement in the writing, in the history writing part. Fine. So apart from this, we are talking about the Asokan pillar. Okay. So Firoz Shah Tughlaq actually found an Asokan pillar, right? And he brought Delhi from Topra, Haryana. And later on, British, they found it and they deciphered it. James Princip was the one who actually deciphered this in 1837. Getting this only in the modern Indian history. Fine. Later on, as society emerged, we find most of these inscriptions were written in Sanskrit language only, right? Because this was language of Kshatriyas and Brahmins, right? Yeah. Then please remember this important table. Why? Because here you are getting the main source. For example, Junagadh rock inscription, the first one, Junagadh. Junagadh is in Gujarat region. Okay, so you should know that we are getting this particular information from this source, because in men's examination you have to quote that as it is. Okay, so we get the information of Rudra Daman, right, from the Junagadh rock inscription, and it is considered as an early example of caste Sanskrit, the pure form of Sanskrit. Then we have Allahabad pillar inscriptions, right, which talks about achievements of Samudragupta. Samudragupta is also known as Napoleon of India because he was highly ambitious ruler from the Gupta dynasty. Okay. Then we have a whole inscription, very important, very important. In men's examination, okay, you will definitely quote this. I'm telling you, you have to quote this. So in a whole inscription, we get the information regarding the Pulakeshian II, a Chalukyan king, a king from Chalukya dynasty. Okay. So in fact, this a whole inscription mentioned that Chalukya king Pulakeshian II defeated Harsha, King Harsha from North India. So Junagadh rock inscription about Rudra Daman, Allahabad pillar is related to Samudragupta, and a whole inscription related to Pulakeshian II. Very, very important. Then we have Gwalior inscriptions, which is related to King Bhoja. King Bhoja. Next source is numismatics. What is numismatics? The study of coins. You know, coins are very, very important sources, because in every dynasty, what happened? They actually issued some coins, okay, which were having some particular symbols associated with that particular king or dynasty. So for the construction of the history of that particular dynasty, coins becomes very important, very relevant. So numismatics is nothing but a study of coins only. Okay, fine. Number one. So in ancient India, we didn't have banking system. So people kept money in the earthen post only. Fine. Later on, when this coin system right emerged, it was issued by some merchants and not by king. Okay. So we had some guilds, some merchants. Guilds were a group of merchants, okay, who were indulged in export and import kind of things. So with the permission from rulers, merchants could issue coins. Yes. So if you get any question like this, ki coins in ancient history were only issued by king. So that is a wrong statement. By merchants also, by guilds also. Largest number of coins found in the postmodern period. And it talks about the trade had increased. Why? Because we are getting more and more number of coins, right? Just totally, you can simply get the information regarding the increase of trade system, because if trade is increasing, then the coins, the transactions, right? The exchange, it was a mode of exchange, you know. All right. Then we have five coins from the post-Gupta period. Five coins, it means trade had declined. So in this way, we actually derive some analysis, some information based on coins. If if numbers of coins is increasing, then trade is increasing. If coins are decreasing, then trade is also declining. Fine. So this is the kind of analysis we do on the basis of coins or numismatics. Yeah. Then we have different types of coins like punch marked Indo-Greek, right? So punch marked coins were the earliest one, right? And they bear only symbols on them. So each symbol is punched separately. They do not bear, right, the name of it's like any particular king, but they have some symbols associated with that particular culture or timing or the dynasty, right? Then we have Indo-Greek, which began actually in post-Maurya period. Post-Maurya period. Then Kusanas also, Kanishka and all, they issued very fine, very fine coins, right? Guptas. Chalo, next is excavations. As I told you, excavations, this is what? This is explorations done by historians who try to, okay, all the time. For example, recently, we have some recent development in the Harappan civilization, right? Harappan civilization, the Indus Valley civilization. So why? Because we have historians who are continuously doing excavations and coming out with different developments, right? For example, we came to know about the Rakhi Garhi. Rakhi Garhi is the largest site of IVC Indus Valley civilization very recently. Okay. But earlier, Mohenjo-daro was supposed to be the largest site of Harappan civilization. Anyway. So we have some examples of temples carved out of rock. So that's an example of excavations only, right? For example, the temples of Ellora, Ajantas, okay. Some temples of examples of Rathas, okay, they are in the form of Ratha only, right? Mamallapuram, also known as Mahabalipuram, I think. right? So these are examples of carved temples out of rocks. Fine. So what did we find from excavations? Let's see. Up to the 1920, very recently, 100 years back, it was believed that Indian civilization was considered to have begun about 6th century BC. Getting this? 6th century BC. So everybody was believing that the Indian society began in 6th century BC only, and not before that. 6th century BC means when Mahajanpadas, when Buddhism and Jainism began. All right. But with the development of excavations kind of system, what happened? We came to know about Mohenjo-daro, Kalibangan, Harappa. Okay. These are famous cities of Indus Valley civilization. And then we try to get the dates. So they belong to 5000 BC. Right. Next, the subsequent discovery of sites of Kalibangan, Lothan, Dholavira, Rakhigadi, which are only the sites of IBC period, Indus Valley civilization. So the extent of the civilization up to Gujarat, Maharashtra, Haryana, Punjab, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh. So 100 years back, before the discovery of Harappa, we didn't know that we had such a magnificent empire, magnificent culture, civilization, that is Indus Valley civilization. It was only in 1920. Okay. When Harappa and then Mohenjo-daro, they were discovered by our historians. We came to know about that, our huge, magnificent ancient civilization. Also, the period between 1500 to 600 BC, right? It was known as the dark period of Indian history because we didn't have any knowledge regarding that. We didn't have any information. But the archaeological discoveries of such culture as black and red ware, these are forms of pottery, painted grey ware, Malwa and Jorva culture, right? Then now we have more information from this period. So now this is not no more a dark period. So that's the power of excavations or the explorations being done by our historians. So this is going to be the last slide. Okay, finally we have done this huge task. Next, it is through archaeological discoveries that we know that Indians domesticated sheep and goat and started agriculture about 8,000 years ago. Getting this? It was only with the help of archaeological discoveries because we were believing that in 6th century BC only Indian civilization began. Also, iron came in regular use about 600 BC. This is not 1600 BC. Please correct it. This is a typing error. Fine. Iron came into existence only in 600 BC. And then the period is known as Iron Age. Archaeological excavations also brought to light the township of Taxila, Kausambi, Kasi, Ayodhya, Vaisali, Bodh Gaya, belonging to Buddha's time. All of these places except Taxila are said to have been visited by Buddha in 6th century BC. If you remember, I show you a question on Lord Buddha. Okay. Like which of the following place was visited by Lord Buddha? So we had an option Gandhar. Okay. Taxila was the part of Gandhar only. So that question was designed from this NCERT only. Getting this? NCERT only. Right. So UPSC doesn't ask random questions. Yeah. Sometimes to check your presence of mind, the frame question like that. But that too has some base, not a random base. Okay. Human activities started in the subcontinent, in the in Indian subcontinent as early as 2 million years ago from Kashmir and Narmada Valley. 2 million years ago means 20 lakh years ago. Fine. Human activities began in India. Also, rock painting was started more than 12,000 years ago rock painting. For the example, Ajanta and Ellora, paintings of Ajanta and Elloras. So this was a unit on sources of Indian history, ancient Indian history. Fine. And again, I'm reminding you, this is important unit. Okay, you can't miss it because UPSC is very fond of asking question from this unit. Okay. Yeah. After this part, you don't have to follow R.S. Sharma or any other book on this chapter, right? Any other book on this chapter. No need to follow that. This is complete. These are complete notes on this part. Fine. So let's have a revision. Okay, simply. First, we did the sources of ancient history. There are two types: literary sources and archaeological sources. Then we begin with the literary sources: Puranas, Vedas, right? Epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata, Vedanga, Sutra, Dharma Sutra and Smritis, Buddhist and Jainisms, Kautilya's Arthashastra, right? Then we also discuss some biographical writings. Okay, books written on biographies like Harshcharita, written by Bana Bhatta on King Harsha. Sangam literature is again very important source, right? To know about the history of South India. Then we discussed the foreign accounts of some foreign writers like Greek ambassadors, Megasthenes, and so on. Chinese travelers, Fahyang, Huan-Tsang, and Aising. Please remember the chronological order. And then we discuss some of the archaeological sources. Archaeological sources like a method, carbon dating principle. This is a method by which you can actually know the timing of that particular evidence. Inscriptions, epigraphy we discussed. Then coins, numismatics. What is the importance of coins? And then excavations. Okay. So this was all about the chapter on sources. Okay, please go through this PDF after the class, right? Devote your half an hour time and then your work is done. Yes, so that is all for today, right? I have to go somewhere urgently. So for today, we have to finish here only, right? Tomorrow, we are going to cover next important part from the ancient India only, right? We will finish ancient India, medieval history, art and culture as soon as possible, right? My target is to finish by this week only, the whole ancient history. Fine. I have some recorded lectures. I will provide you that and some notes, the specific notes, the whole ancient Indian history in 40 pages only. Okay. So I'm going to provide you that. Please go through that. Apart from that, the targets that I am providing you on day-to-day basis, please check that. Okay, please cover those targets, right? And accountability test based on the targets that I gave you today, I'm going to take it tomorrow only, right? So tomorrow I will ask questions both on targets of day 3, that is today, and day 4, that is tomorrow. Fine. Okay. So good night. Take care. God bless you. See you tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you.